The U.S. Democratic Party in disarray over Joe Biden's future as its presidential nominee. After his debate performance, some want him out of the race, but the president is digging his heels. So, will he stay or will he go? And who could replace Biden if he were to step aside? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Folly Thibault. Many U.S. Democrats are questioning whether President Joe Biden is the right person to head the ticket in November's election. His lackluster debate performance against Donald Trump has raised doubts about his capabilities. Can Biden silence the naysayers and unite his party, or can he be persuaded to step down and let someone else take his place? We'll go to our panel of guests in just a moment, but first this report from Fintan Monahan.
U.S. President Joe Biden is used to pressure, but this time it's coming from his own party. His performance in a debate against the presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump has raised questions about his fitness for office.
I don't walk as easy as I used to. I don't speak as smoothly as I used to. I don't debate as well as I used to. But I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Despite growing concerns, the White House says he's determined to continue his campaign to be re-elected in November.
Good afternoon, everyone. The president is clear-eyed, and he is staying in the race. I don't have anything else beyond that. He's staying in the race.
But some supporters aren't so sure. A recent poll suggested 1 in 3 Democratic voters wants him to step aside.
I am feeling panicked. Certainly, laying in my bed at night, overcome with fear. I do not think that Joe Biden is the best person to be running in this election.
I was very surprised when I saw the debate. I didn't realize the condition he was in or how he appeared.
Several high-profile names have been floated as replacements. Among them, Vice President Kamala Harris, California Governor Gavin Newsom, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Some Democrats in Congress have called for Biden to quit the race. But for now, the party is closing ranks, and Democrat governors have thrown their support behind the president.
I'm here to tell you today, President Joe Biden is in it to win it. And all of us said we pledged our support to him because the stakes could not be higher.
Biden faces a grueling campaign. The Democratic Party convention is in August, and he'll face Trump in another debate in September. And if he is convinced to step aside, his successor will have a narrow window to make an impression on voters before Election Day. Fintan Monahan, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's bring in our guest now. In Washington, D.C. is A. Scott Bolden, chair of the National Bar Association Political Action Committee and former chair of the Washington, D.C. Democratic Party. In Dallas, Texas, we're joined by Rania, Batrice, a veteran Democratic Party strategist. And Kristin Wolfe is the chairperson of Democrats Abroad UK, which holds the same status as a state political party. Kristin is joining us from Woking in the United Kingdom. Thank you to all three of you for being on Inside Story today. We appreciate your time. Scott, let me start with you in Washington, D.C. As of now, the Biden campaign is projecting confidence that he will remain the nominee. But just looking at the chaos over the last week or so, does this look to you like a campaign that's ready to go out and win?
Well, it's a campaign that is very winnable. Whether they're going to win is a whole nother story. The Democrats are in a tough position. We're 6 weeks from the DNC convention where the nomination will be formalized. And it is a campaign in a White House that, for all practical purposes, is spinning out of control. It's not so much that Biden lost the debate or didn't perform well. It's how he didn't perform well. He wasn't able to counterpunch. He wasn't able to put sentences together or thoughts together when he was very well prepared to do that. It wasn't just a bad debate night. It raised issues for 50 million people of what the critics have said was that he was old and his mental acuity wasn't what it should be. I don't agree with that. He certainly demonstrated he can lead. Question is he capable of campaigning and winning again? Doesn't matter how well you governed. And so, yes, lots of issues. Right now, the party leaders are closing ranks. Right now, he's got $250 million in the bank, which is good. And right now, we're waiting on definitive polling to see what the voters say. Because in the end, It's going to be up to the voters. And then secondly, Biden controls those delegates. In order for them to replace him, he's got to release them. And it's not clear he's willing to do that right now.
Let me ask you about something else before I bring in Rania, Scott. Has President Biden, you think, taken the steps to consider the growing concerns over his candidacy? There was some suggestion after his meeting with the governors on Wednesday that he could be perhaps reconsidering his position, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
Well, publicly, that's not the case. But literally and realistically, based on what my sources tell me, is it's certainly subject of discussion. The real problem with the Biden campaign and the White House is they have not gotten ahead of this story. To get ahead of this story, they need to let him go out and talk to reporters, let him do some town meetings and do another debate to prove that this wasn't just one bad night. If you don't let him do that, and they haven't so far, then you're hiding him. And if you're hiding him, the Democrats have a real big problem, including a bigger problem that America has a problem with whether Donald Trump is going to win this race or not. He's our last hope. So either he's going to get it together or he's going to get out of the race.
All right. Rania, your thoughts. Do you think the president and his team are being candid with the Americans about his condition and his ability to lead the country right now?
No, I don't. Honestly, I think that this is not a new situation. And I agree with so much of what Scott said in regard to wasn't just one bad debate. It really called into question something that a lot of people across the country, myself included, have been asking. When the president of the United States takes a stage, we shouldn't be holding our breath and wondering which President Biden is going to show up. And that's unfortunately what we've been doing for several months. So no, I don't think they've been honest. I think we saw it play out in the most atrocious setting on a debate stage across from, a true fascist. And as so many of us have been discussing, it's not just the country, the United States, that's going to be affected. It's the entire world. And we're seeing these things play out right in front of our eyes. We saw the White House try to downplay it, try to gaslight us, quite frankly. And just like Scott said, the only way to deal with something like this is to get him out there, to put him on the stump, unscripted, without a teleprompter. And unfortunately, I'm just not sure that President Biden is capable of doing that.
All right, Kristin, your thoughts. What's going on behind the scenes in the Democratic Party right now? What's your party's strategy to control and repair the damage done by President Biden's debate performance?
Well, first, if I can just comment on your last guest who said, he needs to get out there. He does, and he will be doing that on Friday. He'll be doing a long-form interview with, a very prominent news broadcaster in the U.S., political strategist. So stay tuned. President Biden will be doing just what they have suggested he should be doing. But, what the Democratic Party needs to do right now is we need to call out the real elephant in the room, and that is Donald Trump. Donald Trump has allowed us to be distracted as a Democratic Party about a poor debate performance, when in his own debate, he stood on that stage and just spewed a litany of lies that went largely unchallenged. And that is as big of a problem and something that should be far more part of the public discourse right now than anything about Joe Biden. Joe Biden has a very long track record of accomplishments in just 3.5 years. He inherited an absolute mess from Donald Trump. And we are going to get out there and start reminding voters exactly why they didn't like Donald Trump when he was in office to begin with, and why, if he is to return to the office, he will be not only a threat to democracy in the United States, but a threat to democracy around the world. So, key message: do not get distracted. That is the message I have delivered to my leaders and my organization here in the UK. And to make sure that we accomplish our job of work, which is to appeal to those independents and those lost Republicans.
Kristin, let me ask you, how is this being viewed in the UK and the rest of the world? Have people expressed concern to you about the chaos that's we're seeing in the Democratic Party right now? Are people concerned about what's happening in America?
Look, you can't escape the news stories, but the big question I keep getting asked is, why aren't we talking about Donald Trump? And that is, I think, where we need to start shifting this dialogue quite quickly. We need to talk about his moral character. I mean, the man is a convicted felon.
Right.
We should be talking about why is it that the Republican Party doesn't give us another option.
Okay, Rania, as a Democratic strategist, your response to that. Kristin says Donald Trump is distracting the Democratic Party and that the focus should be more on him rather than President Biden's debate performance or his ability to lead.
I agree that Donald Trump is a terrifying human being. We've already seen what he's capable of in one administration. I personally have no interest in seeing what he'll do in a second administration, which is, to me, the reason that we have to act quickly and swiftly to replace the sitting president with a candidate who can be out on the stump and campaign vigorously. And to, you know, it's one debate. And in any other situation, we would be talking about the atrocious things that Donald Trump said and did. And yes, he is a liar and a convicted felon. And he, from the debate stage, he said black jobs multiple times. He used Palestinian as a racial slur. We would be talking about all of those things and all the lies had it not been so terrifying to see that side by side of President Biden next to, yes, that convicted felon. And we have a very small window of time to really get it together. And the reality is, the president was not doing great in the polls even before the debate. So these are the realities we have to face. And as much as all of us wish we weren't in this situation, we actually have to do something about it. Because again, we're talking about not just the state of our democracy in the United States and the state of our country, but what's going to happen in the rest of the world as well.
All right. Scott, your thoughts about what Rania just said there. And is it possible, in fact, for Joe Biden to step down, to have an open convention, when August comes, when the Democratic convention comes? And what are the issues legally with having a Democratic candidate so late in the race if Biden were to decide to step down?
Hey, this is the reality that we find ourselves in. My mother used to say there are no good decisions or bad decisions. They're just decisions that need to be made, and then you go make them right. I agree with Rania about these issues. And to my other colleague from the UK, we all agree with you that Donald Trump is a distraction, and Donald Trump is a convicted felon. He has been found guilty or liable for financial fraud and sexual abuse. But you got to give the people an alternative. And Biden is our alternative. He's got a great track record. But if 50 million people don't have confidence in him because of his performance and how he performed in the debate, then people, the independents, suburban women voters, and people of color, which make up the base of the Democratic Party, they're not going to go vote for Donald Trump. They may not vote at all. And if they don't vote at all, that's a vote for Trump, unfortunately. And so Biden drives this narrative, not just his performance, but how they let 6 days delay without getting ahead of this story and making some decisions and putting him out there to show that this debate performance was an aberration. Now, the DNC is in 6 weeks, right? Biden controls all of his delegates. He would have to step down or withdraw and let those delegates go. Now, Harris is on the ticket as the vice president. She would be a natural choice for number two to move up to number one. You wouldn't have to release the delegates, and you'd have $240 million for her to spend. If you bring in a governor who doesn't have national appeal, hasn't been on the national stage, then that gets more complicated. You're going to have a convention floor fight if they challenge her. And so those are the legal implications and ramifications of changing horses. But a decision has to be made now, not later. That's key. Now, not later.
All right. And I want to get Rania and Kristin's thoughts about who, if Biden were to decide to drop out of the race, who could be top of the ticket. But Kristin, let me ask you first about the conversations that are going on within the Democratic Party right now. The president and his inner circle seem to be adamant that he will stay on the ticket. But within the Democratic Party right now, what are people saying? Because we're seeing a lot of mixed messages about what Democrats want. Do they want to wait for Joe Biden to decide that he doesn't want to be part of the race anymore, that he's going to drop out, or is someone else going to be making that decision?
What they want is for Joe Biden to come out strong and show the Joe Biden that we all know and love. I mean, you have to remember, this is a man who is very well regarded within our party. And he has done a tremendous job since he took office.
He's very well regarded,
ago.
you say, Kristin, but there are some voices within the Democratic Party who are starting to say that, okay, maybe he's not the right candidate for us.
And people are entitled to that view. I mean, the reality is, though, is that this party right now, Joe Biden is on our ticket. We are supporting our candidate, and we're proud of the candidate's record. We're proud of what he has done for our country, and we are going to stand by him unless he decides himself that he doesn't want to run, in which case then we have a whole really impressive list of candidates that could come forward. But our bench is our strength. That's where we are also in big contrast to the Republican Party. They really don't have anyone. We've got a long list of people. But right now, our candidate is Joe Biden, and we're sticking by him.
Okay. Rania, your thoughts. Do you think the Democrats will continue to stick by Biden, even as Scott said, the fallout from the debate performance continues to grow? There's this interview on ABC on Friday that everyone is keeping a close eye on about how he performs there. How does he change the narrative between now and the convention if he wants to stay as the Democratic nominee?
To your first question, I think we're seeing every day. Just last night, we had another sitting member of the Democratic caucus in the House call for President Biden to step aside. Obviously, we saw Congressman Lloyd Doggett do the same just a couple of days ago. I think these conversations are ongoing, and I think we're going to see more of that in the coming days. Yes, you're right. Everybody is sort of holding our breath a bit to see the interview with George Stephanopoulos tomorrow evening in prime time. But the reality is, even if I said this to a colleague just yesterday, even if he gets a cold or has allergies or one of the realities of just being out in the world happens, he doesn't have that luxury anymore because of exactly what we saw. And so I do think these conversations are happening and growing behind closed doors. I think they're going to come out in public even more in the coming days. And I do think the president has a responsibility to this country and again to the world to do what's right, for all of us. He's not doing well. And as we all know, the president of the United States is probably the hardest job in the entire world, not to mention the campaign that goes alongside it. Mm-hmm. And we cannot have, again, a fascist out there holding 4 rallies a day, lying and telling all of these untruths, and have a president who can't get out on the trail with that same energy and that same commitment. Not that he doesn't have the commitment, but we can't have that contrast. It's not the numbers weren't good before the debate on Thursday, and they haven't been getting any better since.
Okay, Scott, before we talk about the Plan B options for the Democrats, do you think they wait for Joe Biden to decide to drop out of the race, or are we going to see maybe the donors being the ones making that decision?
Well, so now you have some Democratic congressmen that have called for him to step down. The donors are talking. I'm a sizable donor to the DNC and on the Biden finance team. And if the donors start to walk away, they're watching the money. They've got $240 million in the bank, but the donors, the larger donors, continue to give. And then it's the voters, if you will, the polling. So we need those answers real quick. I agree with my colleague from UK. Biden's got the record, and I'm 1,000% behind him. But if he can't get it done, he can't get it done, and that's a reality. So the interview is important, right? He's got to knock that out of the park. But then he's got to do some town hall meetings and some interactions with the press, freestyle, as the young people say here in the U.S., and he cannot afford to slip. He cannot afford a gap because he's got to outrun that debate performance. And so we're looking at all of that. I see Rania shaking her head, saying he won't be able to do it. You're right, Rania. He may not be able to do it, but you got to give him a chance. And if he fails in the next week or so, and the polling comes in that he's 6 to 10 points down, now it's decision-making time, because that'll leave us with 5 weeks. And now you're going to have hard discussions with him, and he's going to have to make a decision as to whether he's going to save the country or not by stepping down or coming clean about his medical condition, so that we can all make some type of practical assessment. Lots of decisions to be made.
All eyes on the polls, as you say, and whether or not undecided voters will actually, move to Trump or stick with Biden or go with Biden. Let me ask you, Scott, about Plan B for the Democrats. Some names have been floating as a possible replacement for Biden if he were to decide to drop out of the race. Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, the California governor, Gretchen Whitmer as well. How are African-American voters going to feel if Kamala Harris, the vice president, is not top of the ticket?
Well, she's certainly entitled to it. She's been an incredible vice president, despite her polling numbers being matched up well with Biden. Very popular with young people, very popular with anti-abortionists, very popular with people and voters of color. And so African Americans, I can't speak for all African Americans, but I can tell you this, that if she's not the nominee because she's entitled to it as the number two, then there are going to be some problems. And the other thing she does by being number one, if she moves up, if Biden decides to step down, is that she helps him. She helps the ticket with voters of color, women, anti-abortionists, and young people. Those are the groups that have abandoned or left Biden or aren't supportive of Biden for a lot of different reasons. She shores that up, quite frankly. They come back. And that's the coalition that beat Donald Trump before. She's a skilled debater. She's so super smart. We were in college, different colleges at the same time. I know her, and she's a brilliant woman who has been a brilliant politician. And so, yeah, I think that would alienate African-American voters for sure if she's passed over.
Rania, a strong endorsement there from Scott for Kamala Harris. What are your thoughts? If Kamala Harris were to be top of the ticket, would that appease Democrats as a whole? Would there be unity in the party around Kamala Harris?
I'm not ready to make any big claims around anyone. I will say that the vice president has a unique opportunity to grow, whereas the president, he's a known commodity. He doesn't have very much room, to grow. But the vice president does. She has an opportunity to bring together, just like Scott said, disaffected voters, some in the Black community, quite frankly, who have been upset with this administration over a number of things, including the inability to talk about reparations or reparatory justice, some within the young community who care deeply about climate change and other issues, some within the Latino community, et cetera.
What about the Arab American community?
The Palestinian and Arab That's exactly what I was going to
say. Which have been so disappointed in the Biden administration's policies in the Middle East.
Absolutely. And that's, as a first-generation Palestinian American, that was the very next thing I was going to say. She does have an opportunity to coalesce all of our communities, to bring us together, to say, listen, I respect obviously, she's not going to say anything against the president, but she has a very unique, very important opportunity to truly bring all of our communities together in not just a beautiful way, but an incredibly important way. And she might be one of the only people that's being discussed right now who has that opportunity. But again, it's not just going to happen magically. It's not just going to say, okay, she's our pick, and it's just going to magically, occur. She's going to actually have to do the work and bring these voices and bring these folks into the room and give some assurances, because there have been some very deep disappointments before that debate performance, before a lot of things that have happened just in the recent months. There have been a lot of frustrations with this administration, with this president.
Okay, Kristin, let me get your thoughts on that. Plan B for the Democrats, if there were to be a Plan B where President Biden, in a couple of days or weeks before the convention, decides that he doesn't want to run, he will drop out of the race, then we have an open convention, of course. Who could win for Democrats?
Listen, as I said before, first off, it's a complete hypothetical. Joe Biden is our candidate. But should he choose to step down, our bench strength is really the party's strength. We have diverse candidates everywhere, but I want to specifically talk about Kamala Harris. I agree with my colleague in Washington. She is phenomenal. She is smart. She is something that is a real energetic force within our party, and she has been given such a hard time. She's the first woman to ever hold that vice president office. And,
why do you think she's been given such a hard time? It has to be said, she hasn't been very popular as a vice president. A lot of people, a lot of Americans would say, what has she done? But, why do you think it's a case?
Because she's a woman. I honestly do think that she is getting a hard time because there are people who want to see her fail. And you know what? As a woman myself, I think that's a losing strategy for those people who, have really made it their mission to disparage her throughout the last 3.5 years. I have met her personally. She is engaging. She's warm. She's thoughtful. And, I think it is high time that we really start to look at what she brings to the table. I do not know one single thing that any vice president has ever done in the course of our history other than in moments of crisis, whether that is, Mike Pence doing his job, which he was supposed to do on January 6th, or whether that was, someone in the face of an assassination. I know of nothing that they've done because their job is to prepare themselves to hold the highest office in the land. And they are there. She has been groomed and she's ready.
Okay, I'm going to ask you each one briefly one last question. And, in 20 seconds, if you can give me your honest answer, that would be great. Scott, let me start with you. Can Biden get across the finish line? Should he stay or should he go?
Well, he can get across the finish line, but that depends on the next week or two with his performances.
All right. Rania, should he stay or should he go?
He's got to go. That's all. That's all I've got.
Okay. All right. Kristin,
Rania.
I think I know your answer, Kristin, but still, should President Biden stay on the ticket or should he let a Kamala Harris be top of the ticket and give the Democrats a chance to win in November?
I think President Biden should do what he feels is the right thing for him to do. And whatever he chooses, I'm with President Biden 100%. So let's go Biden-Harris.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all three of you for such a great conversation. Scott, Bolden, Rania, Batrice, Kristin, Wolfe. So great to talk to you about this. And I'm sure we'll be discussing this in the next few weeks again once things get clearer for the Democrats. Thank you to all three of you for joining us. And thank you as well for watching. You can always watch this program again anytime by visiting our website at aljazeera.com for further conversation. Go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the discussion, of course, on X. Our handle is at AJ Inside Story. From me, Folly, Thibault, and the whole team here in Doha, thank you for watching. Bye for now. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.